So welcome to today's discussion, talking about the UAE and the growth of a global business hub. For those that don't know me, I am Felice Hurst, MD of Hanson Search, Middle East and Asia Pac, and I'm delighted and thrilled to see the number of sign-ups for today's discussion. There are actually over 600, and we've got a truly global audience, which makes this our largest webinar to date and just shows the appetite in the market for the UAE information. Over the past year or so, the modern world has experienced unprecedented challenges, forcing us to shift and adapt to what is widely being touted as the new normal. The UAE's government's strong leadership in addressing the pandemic has proven just how agile and adaptive the nation is, bouncing back stronger to reinforce its position as an international business and talent hub and as a destination for tourism, employees and companies alike. We are currently #1 in the world for COVID testing, averaging 250,000 tests a day. We have administered, as of today, more than 14.5 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, which currently stands at 70% of the population who have now had both vaccines, and it's open to everybody over the age of 12. All putting the region in a great position for economic sustainability, and the UAE is becoming one of the fastest growing economies in the region and beyond. So to set the agenda for today's conversation and a little bit of housekeeping, we'll be running this webinar for about an hour. It is being recorded and we will be sending out an overview and the recording after the event. I'm going to start by introducing you to the panel and then we'll go on to the conversation. Please do submit any questions into the chat box. We will try to cover as many as possible throughout the conversation. So first, Issam Kazim. Issam is the CEO of DTCM, Dubai Corporation of Tourism and Commerce Marketing. Having built up and developed DTCM's team from the ground up, including all of its international offices, Issam leads all activities regarding marketing for the Emirate of Dubai. He is instrumental in negotiating and facilitating global partnerships. He also regularly acts as a key media spokesperson and the face of Dubai tourism. Under his leadership, DTCM has developed innovative destination tools and data-driven platforms to enhance the visitor experience in Dubai and in scaling up the Visit Dubai digital and social ecosystem. He has also spearheaded groundbreaking marketing campaigns such as A Story Takes Flight, starring Gwyneth Paltrow, the award-winning #BeMyGuest featuring Bollywood superstar Shah Rukh Khan, and most recently, Live Your Story. Then we have Mohammad Alblooshi, who is Sector Head of Fintech and Innovation at DIFC. Dubai International Financial Centre is the leading financial hub connecting the region's markets with the economies of Europe, Asia and the Americas, with a vision to drive the future of finance. Mohammad has supported the growth of DIFC by developing its fintech and innovation functions in line with Dubai's vision of becoming a global business hub for tech and startup. Mohammad also leads in the recently announced DIFC Innovation Hub, with the mission of building the region's leading hub for innovative companies. In the last 4.5 years alone, under his leadership, the DIFC has attracted more than 370 fintech and innovation companies to the centre. Selina Bieber. Selina is the General Manager of Godaddy Middle East and Africa. Selina brings over 12 years of experience to the UAE and has been at the helm of Godaddy's launch and go-to-market strategy development for EMEA and MENA over the last 6 years. With her focus on enablement and empowerment for regional businesses and entrepreneurs, the Godaddy brand and team has grown in the region. Throughout 2020, Selina successfully launched Godaddy's first local branded marketing campaign and Godaddy e-commerce, an e-commerce product to support the digitalization needs of everyday entrepreneurs across the region. In 2021, they've seen the announcement of Godaddy MENA Entrepreneurship Survey result in partnership with Startups Without Borders, which supports the development of digital literacy in the region and the launch of a new brand campaign focusing on the makers and the creators coming out of the MENA entrepreneurial ecosystem. Selina has a strong pulse on the digital landscape and is excited about the potential in MENA with Dubai as the regional hub. Last but not very least, Alice Weightman, founder and CEO of Hanson Search and of The Work Crowd. Alice is a true entrepreneur and innovator in her own right. Alice saw a problem and decided to find a way to rectify it, so The Work Crowd was launched in 2015. It's a global platform that connects businesses with talent they need while helping people find the work that works for them. Today, that vision has become a reality and it's now a global platform. Its sights are set on changing work for the better everywhere, and it's now here in the UAE. The work crowd believe that great work is about what you do, not where you do it. So enough of me and on to you. So I'd really want to start, and I'm going to start with Issam first, because in your position at DTCM, you've got the overall government view of both tourism and commercial aspects. So I'd really like to hear your understanding of the handling of the pandemic and how that's elevated Dubai's position, both as a tourist destination and attracting business to the region.
Thank you, Felice, for that. I think, honestly, I think kudos or the hats off to the leadership within the city of Dubai, from both the public side as well as the private side, who have been very decisive in taking action and swiftly taking those decisions. So we were one of the first countries globally to actually shut down. We had very strict curfews in place. We had, even in terms of rolling out a new app that allowed people to the opportunity to be able to log in their need for travel within the city, what the emergency was basically, as well as their car plate number, and then receive a message that tells them that they're allocated that time slot to be able to conduct the emergency need. So things like that, very efficiently done, very tightly done. But in parallel, we had also the government and private sector working together to roll out new policies and procedures for what they had in mind already was how quickly can we turn things back on again, because we knew that it's not an indefinite closure. It cannot be an indefinite closure. So again, just like we were very strict and one of the first to shut down, we were one of the first to open up. So in May, we opened up for domestic tourism with very strict guidelines in place, very strict policies, and the monitoring was done extremely tightly. We had 140,000 plus inspections that went across all the cities, across all of the touch points, to ensure that these new measures are being acted on very well and managed extremely tightly. But then it gave us a chance to slowly open up and find that perfect balance between the hygiene and safety measures, as well as business continuity. Once we were comfortable with that, by July, we opened up for international tourism as well. And that, again, of course, gave us a very good starting point. But looking at it from that decisive perspective, we had about 40,000 tourists in July of 2020. And if you compare that to March of 2021, where we had 454,000 tourists, it shows you how these changes and the measures that we had in place really help. Because monitoring, engaging people's interest, people being aware of what Dubai is doing. We had several campaigns that were running in parallel, showing people that we are in this together. We understand the situation that you're going through, and this is the reality. However, let's not despair. Let's look at the optimistically at what's coming up next. And we were very playful in our messages as well, following that. Engaging the interest, you could see people getting excited about what Dubai is doing. So they started searching Dubai a lot more. They started to show interest to travel to Dubai, and that appetite, that anxiousness of, you know what, we're sick of being behind four walls, and as soon as things open up, we're going to Dubai. And that really showed up in the numbers as well.
And I've heard some interesting stories. There was a law firm in the States a year ago, and they sent all of their, because of some of the initiatives in place here and the fact that we were open to business, they sent over all of their young and single lawyers to come and be working out of Dubai. But what we are need to make sure is events like this are getting these stories out there into the press, that how much we are doing.
Absolutely,
now,
please.
I think probably that one is the lead. Let's talk about some of these initiatives, and just, you know, such as the remote working, the golden visas.
Absolutely.
Just to give an overview for people that aren't, it's all right for us here in Dubai, but we've got many of the audience that aren't actually aware of how the ease of business here as an individual, as a startup.
I think from that perspective, what happened was we saw this as an opportunity, as a window, because we saw people stuck in Dubai when the lockdown happened. Borders were closed, they couldn't travel back again. So what we decided was, the leadership immediately said, let's extend their visas for free so they feel safe and secure. They don't need to worry about that. And then we noticed that a lot of people started to work virtually from here as well, enjoying the infrastructure that Dubai has. And a lot of them knew Dubai as a transit destination, as a 2-3 day destination, but not really an in-depth understanding of what Dubai has to offer. When they started to engross themselves a bit more and really understand why 200 odd nationalities have actually chosen Dubai to be home, to set up shop, set up business, to raise a family, right? That gave them a real flavor of what Dubai is all about. So what we did was we rolled out a program, which we had been talking about for years, but COVID gave us a chance to really put these things into play, and virtual working program was rolled out. And since the rollout happened, we had more than 3,000 applications that have already been processed, and people have taken it up, and they're here working virtually as well. We had the Golden Visa, which is a 5-10-year program that's aimed at investors, specialized talents, students as well. Then there's also the retirement one, another program that we've talked about for many, many years. It gave us really a chance to roll this out across all of the government departments, working very closely with them. And this is a chance for people who are 55 plus who are looking for a place that's going to be ideally located in terms of connectivity, infrastructure, lifestyle, and also a place where they can still explore the world from as well. So Dubai Airport's reach, the Emirates Airlines, Fly Dubai, and all the others that are traveling through and enjoying Dubai's open skies policy. So all of this really positioned Dubai ideally, and we wanted to make sure that the story of COVID is not short-lived. It's something that people understand by nature what Dubai's appetite is like, and that automatically just flew really well for us.
So I suppose this is now a good way to go to Selina. So Godaddy, I mean, now we're talking about the digitalization piece and this digital nomad. So what role do you see digital playing in managing the pandemic and moving business forward, and UAE stance and commitment to digitalization? How are you seeing that as Godaddy and your very large global overview and landscape of it?
I mean, I think, you know, the pandemic in itself, virtually overnight, because it came so quickly. I mean, even from a personal point of view, we were talking about it and then it became a reality in a very short space of time. And I think one of the things we saw was digital was the way we all had to communicate. There was no choice. So we were forced to online platforms, and as consumers, we were used to it to a certain extent. You know, it's more habitual, but then the business landscape had to adapt very, very quickly. And, you know, to touch upon Issam's point, here there was an app that was developed immediately. So what I think we saw was Dubai is in a strong position because connectivity is excellent. You know, the startup ecosystem is very tech focused. We also see a lot of, you know, our customers that are coming online with innovative ideas, and they're embracing digital as a way to grow because it's cost efficient. It allows them to connect and really play into that hub concept. But when we look at that immediate, let's say, onset of the pandemic, people were forced to say, and businesses were forced to say, okay, I may have considered, you know, creating a website before, or creating an online presence before, but now I have to. And that overnight need became something that people were researching about. They were looking at different options. And I think we saw this surge in just the way businesses pivoted. We saw, you know, online marketplaces see more demand. We saw apps being developed and more brands available on these apps, while these businesses also then went and actually created their own online presence. So the way that they adapted to actually meet these consumer needs, that was something that we observed on the Godaddy side, but also the increase in communication. So when we look at our how customers were, you know, communicating, we see that there was a interest in increasing the level of communication with their customers. This could be about what they're doing against the backdrop of the pandemic. You know, are they what initiatives? So we know that the government has led this need to focus on hygiene, focus on safety, focus on regulations, and this I mean, again, to the point of this is still something we're living with, you know. So how do we adapt very, very quickly to understanding how to function as a business in this environment, the level of increased communications with their customers, and then also marketing. So how do I make myself seen? How do I get people re-merchandising their homepage, for example, with their core products? Or businesses that were previously physically delivering goods or having people in shop, then they, for example, put a WhatsApp button on their website, and then they started facilitating orders and delivery. And this pivot happened very, very quickly. But from our Godaddy point of view, it's also looking at how do we deliver the solutions in a way, you know, to the point of local language. So how can a customer not just have an English language website, but an Arabic and English language website to better serve the market here? But how can they communicate and be where their customers are? So yes, email is one, but how can they integrate WhatsApp? How can they integrate social media so they are able to have conversations with their consumers, with their customers where they are, and ensure they're getting the right level of information, the right information that they need to get. And again, the beauty of digital is it can adapt, you can iterate. So you might have a solution today, but you can improve that solution tomorrow. So I think that we've seen that trend coming, and to relate it back to this was the kind of onset of the pandemic. But when we look at the topic of remote working, as we saw more people, I think here the confidence in, we ran a survey at the end of last year and released the results at the beginning of this year, and two of the handling of the pandemic, the respondents, they said that the UAE was very responsible and proactive in how they basically met the needs and the challenges of the pandemic. And I think that shows that confidence in, there's a leadership that's taking control of this and is managing it for us. So we as business owners, we as employees can continue to function in whatever this new normal is going to be, but we're all in this together. And so that gave more confidence, even in my own personal circles. You know, people are really surprised at how well everything is just rolling as it is, because we continue with this semi-normal lifestyle, and it's becoming attractive for people to come and work from here, because there is flexibility, there's a confidence in what's being done. And now technology is showing us, we know that digital allows us to connect, so you don't have to physically be in a space to be able to work. And you know, I've got a team here, but I've got colleagues in the US, I've got colleagues in the UK, I've got colleagues in Germany. And so, you know, working out of the cloud, working with Microsoft 365, this is the key to my business survival, because we are so used to working like this. But I think one of the great gifts of what we've experienced over the past year has been people now recognize how efficient they can actually work. And obviously we miss the face-to-face contact, but we can be much more productive and actually get the right talent, the right people for the right job. And this is agnostic of where you are located geographically.
So this is a really good time now for me to jump in, and I can't decide if I'm going to Mohammad or Alice, so I'm going to offer to both. So obviously I'm here in dual capacity as the work crowd and as Hanson Search, and the biggest issues we always come up with, every CEO we deal with, internationally, from a multinational down to a startup, is the talent. And what we have seen over the last 12 months is that enormous rise of the startup world here. I mean, I think figures I read last week was 39, 40% of the GDP of the UAE is SME and startup. I mean, that's obviously coming through DTCM. This hub, and Mohammad, really want you to talk about the hub, but I mean, before we go to that, I think Alice, I think it'd be really good to see your understanding on what's going on with this digital nomads, this whole modern and new way of working with these freelancers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Words coming up, connectivity and pivoting, and I think talent is pivoting. Before COVID hit, McKinsey did a great study which showed that 50% of the workforce will be working independently by 2027, which is incredible, but actually it's happening. So even if we look at Google, 50% of the workforce is already working independently. And I think there's two reasons, well, actually three. If we look at the freelancers, the actual employees, they are choosing to work in a different way. It's no longer freelancing as sort of between jobs. It's actually a career choice. It's a smart way of working. 56% of freelancers actually feel more financially secure, and 70% are happier with their life. So, you know, it's been driven by employees, but also businesses are rethinking, you know, cost structures, digital skills. You've talked about these new type of skills that are coming through, and that's very hard to house under one roof. And I think, interestingly, though, COVID has come at a time where it's actually separated the word workplace and work. They're no longer coupled together. They're two separate things. And so this has enabled businesses and individuals to sort of rethink how they work and the way they go about it. And actually post-COVID, 80% of large US companies plan to increase the use of freelancers. And I think that's really interesting from a UAE perspective. If we look at the freelance economy in the UAE, it's actually one of the fastest growing freelance economies. In fact, it has the highest per capita, or one of the highest per capita of freelancers in the world. So just behind Hong Kong, USA and South Korea. So there is already this strong community of freelancers, but actually white collar freelancers. So really skilled individuals who can contribute to the tech ecosystems, who can be much more agile, on demand, supply new skills that are coming into play to support this digitalization that is happening. And I see that as a sort of a major plus side for the area. Freelancing also, 33% of freelancers are actually currently millennials, which will make up the largest workforce over the next 5 to 10 years. So these are individuals who want to have much more agile, much more flexibility in how they work, but can really complement an environment which is pro-entrepreneurs, which is pro-business, which is heavily investing in this tech ecosystem, because it lends very well to this type of talent. And just one more sort of comment I think to make is, actually, because we've decoupled the workplace and work, individuals can decide now where they want to work. And the UAE is uniquely positioned in that actually they can serve both the UAE, GCC, but globally. But also these individuals can go to an environment which is low taxation, low regulation, and really quite a nice way of living. So I think it has a very unique standpoint, which is one of the reasons why we've taken the work crowd to the UAE, to sort of support all the initiatives that really are happening. And I think it lends itself very well.
So Mohammad, it's over to you now then. So this, obviously all the conversation is doing now, this digitalization, this digital nomad, and then we'll talk about the startup and these incubators. So it'd be wonderful if you could tell us a bit about this fantastic incubator that's only just been launched last month. So give us a bit of an overview of that, and then we can look into the digitalization, e-commerce, fintech side of it all.
Great, thank you for that, Felice. We've recently announced the DIFC Innovation Hub, which DIFC of course stands for the Dubai International Financial Center, which is the largest financial center within the Middle East and North African markets. But I think the vision over here was to create a hub which attracts startups, and I think we saw a huge surge in the last 12 months. I was just doing the numbers. This year we project to attract about 200-250 startups, which is more than what we attracted in the last 3 years. So this truly gives us an indication of how quickly the market is growing. The Innovation Hub, of course, it's aligned with Dubai Future District's vision, which His Highness envisions that the Dubai Future District will be the largest innovation district in the whole region, and we've announced this initiative towards that vision to kind of bring like-minded people under one roof. It's a cluster where as of today we have more than 350 startups. I think we hope our numbers say that we should be about 500 startups by the end of the year. And the concept is, I think it's very interesting now as well, given the time, because a lot of the startups they're rapidly growing, and as they're rapidly growing, the requirement is also very different as to what it used to be. Because as we were doing the Innovation Hub, I used to reach out to a lot of the startups and tell them what are the requirements from office perspective. A lot of these startups used to say, Mohammad, we don't even know if we're going to go back to office, or we don't know if we will require that much of space. This has changed over the last 6 to 8 months. A lot of companies that initially said we don't need office space, or they've called back. They said we do realize that some sort of office presence is required, but however, it's not going to be how things used to work. So now we've come up with this model where we allow hybrid working. So companies actually take office space. Let's say if you are a startup that has 25-30 employees, you will probably take an office space for 15 people, and then you will you will break your team into 2 groups. So a group comes 2 or 3 days in office, and another group comes for 2 or 3 days, which actually allows them also to have somewhat physical connectivity as well, because people miss that. And
it's that human element, isn't it? It's connecting humans.
Exactly, interacting with humans, us as well as the IFC. I mean, we're back, the whole center, we're trying to get them back, but we believe, and the way we see it, that the new normal will be a mix of being at, between work and offices, because at the end of the day, managers want to see their employees, and employees, us, we want to go back to offices, but I doubt it's going to be like before. And we've seen with a lot of startups taking this approach where they do a mix of physical and then virtual work, remote working. And we've actually created that product for them at the Innovation Hub, now, all the way from early stage startups, if you are very early, to mid-stage startups, even for growth companies. I've got a company that has about 120 employees, and they've taken office space for 50 people. And I said, how are you going to manage? He's like, well, we'll just rotate. I said, fine with us. I mean, if it's okay with you, it's okay with us. So we've been agile in the way we look at our offerings. And I think it has worked. And as we've adapted to this new product offering, the demand has significantly increased as well, because a lot of these companies are growing rapidly. The tech companies, not just from a numbers perspective, from a size perspective as well. A lot of these guys are rapidly hiring. The amount of money that's being invested into startups has significantly increased in the region. One of the things I used to be critical about, that the region doesn't see a lot of investment into startups. But I think now, if we look at the last 8 to 9 months, the amount of investment that startups have attracted, I think is phenomenal. And
even yesterday there were announcements with Beehive and one of the banks that say they're now focusing on the SME and loaning to the business. I mean, that's something that's really come out as being really impressive from the government here, the initiatives and how quickly they've brought them out. I mean, because some of the financial regulations have been quite made businesses quite difficult to come to the region. But I mean, each time I try and write an article, it changes every day, because it's just some of the, and this may be something Issam can talk about, you know, there's so many of these initiatives coming through that are making this ease of business down to the personal way of living, you know, that you can live without being married, you know, you can sponsor your families, you can buy the alcohol. I mean, there are so many ridiculous questions that we get asked. I get asked as a search firm. They'll say to me, can you work? Can you drive? Can you drink? Or you were like, and it's like, well, obviously, you know, it's quite amazing the misrepresentation that comes, and obviously I know we here in Dubai regularly complain about this, and it's why it's so wonderful to have a forum such as this to be able to say to everyone, actually, look what we're doing, look how quickly we're evolving. So it's maybe again going back to the overall government, some of those recent initiatives on the more human element rather than the business.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right, Felice. And I think this is what keeps my job interesting and exciting, to say the least. Whenever I travel, half the time it's me trying to say, like, yes, you can go out in Dubai. Yes, you can drink. And no, you don't have to cover up as much as you think you should. And like, just visit the beaches in Dubai and you'll see the life is very different than what you've been hearing, right? So, and again, I think the strongest advocacy message there is about the nationalities that live in Dubai and the reason why they chose to live in Dubai, because of the lifestyle that they can afford for themselves and their family, and the safety and security of that as well. Just one walk down the La Mer development, you will see people in you know, enjoying the beach in two-piece bathing suits, and people covered up having coffee on the shore. So I think that contrast and that synergy and that harmony is what's key and different about Dubai. And what I always say is, the analogy that I always use is, the difference between Dubai and many other multinational cities around the world is usually, like, if you go to like cosmopolitan cities like London or New York, for example, you have many different cultures and nationalities, but they all become New Yorkers, or they become Londoners. What's unique about Dubai is every single nationality still maintains their original identity, and in fact add that to the culture and to the fabric, and then everyone gets to enjoy the different celebrations, the different things that these cultures and nationalities bring to this community. And I think that's what's unique, and that's why raising a child in this environment is so different, because the universality aspect of that is unique and differentiating. But going back to your point, there are a lot of these things that we've recently been announcing just to make sure that we are stating the obvious more than anything else, and also I think clarifying some of the gray areas that existed, right? And what people also need to remember is that UAE as a country is 50 years old, celebrating 50 years, in fact, this year. So we're still not 50. And a lot has happened over such a short period of time. And again, these learning and that appetite to learn, to adapt, to change, to be able to be always agile, right, and nimble. I mean, we've learned that term so well during this period of time, and I think that's what's been unique about Dubai as a destination, and that's what has always created that edge. And that entrepreneurial spirit is the reason why Dubai has been able to shift time and again, and again prove the tractors wrong, and all those statements about 2008 and before. Every time there's a bubble, oh yes, the bubble's burst and Dubai is gone, and alhamdulillah, we managed to keep coming back again and again and stronger than before, and it will be the same going forward. What I would like to say is that never, as cliche as it, never judge a book by its cover. So don't listen to what people are saying. It's the first time experience. The minute you land in Dubai, and I've heard this firsthand from the people that we invite into the city, and the first thing that sticks with them is about how smooth the process was to be from landing on the tarmac and then out and into the taxis and on the way to the hotel. That whole experience being so smooth, that's one. Again, things we take for granted. And another thing which was very, very important is, and this is usually coming from the ladies, they're like, it's amazing how when you're at a Starbucks, for example, you see the girls in a group putting their phone on the table and then going and placing an order, because they're not worried about losing the phone, they're worried about losing the table. And those are the kind of things that we enjoy in Dubai, but it's only when you're here that you can see it firsthand, and then you will believe that whatever you've heard wasn't true, and that Dubai is the reason or the place where you should be setting up shop and setting up your home.
When I said it, I'm a single parent of 3 children. So I've got a daughter who's doing her A-levels, another one in year 7 and a son in year 10. And I go, when we first arrived 8 years ago, my eldest daughter, who was 10 at the time, coming home from that first day at school, just going, oh, Mummy, it's amazing. I've got friends from India, Africa, China. I mean, they have friends of every colour, creed, religion, and they don't say, that's my Muslim friend, that's my Christian friend.
Exactly.
They are all inclusive. There is no racism, there's no gender. And when they go back to England, my teenager, who's, I have to say, quite woke, she's absolutely horrified by the fact they are so judgmental. And we are, I don't know, Selina, you live here too. And I said, single woman, I mean, I go to London, it's scary just being on the underground. It is. And here we are, we are protected and we feel safe. And as a woman in business, I mean, look, there's 3 women here compared to more women than men on this panel. We're certainly not held back. There are more women in leadership roles in the UAE than there are in the United Nations. I mean, the other initiatives coming through, having women on boards, and that's not
women
a
judges.
quota. That is actually, these women are, I mean, and it's not, you've got to have one. Women are doing it anyway, and far faster than any other part of the world. And it's, again, this misrepresentation that women are suppressed. It almost makes me laugh. It's like,
it does. I think, honestly, from my point of view, looking at, from a personal level, I mean, it was such a relief. My son, it's his birthday today. And so he's 4, and he, like, coming here 3 years ago, it was such a relief, because I think I realized how I can pursue my career, know that my family is safe, it's structured. I don't have to worry about it. So from a personal point of view, I don't think I probably could have achieved what I could professionally as a woman if I wasn't in Dubai. So that's, a testament to everything that's happening here. And then, obviously I'm at Godaddy. My husband owns his own business. He's an entrepreneur. He's marine engineering. And when I look at the development that has come in a hub role, that's been a very positive development for him as well, because he's had access to, international markets through that. But then also when I look at the customers at Godaddy that we see coming from the region, speaking about how different cultures come together, they bring together ideas. You've got an Egyptian maybe working with someone from, the UK or Europe. One is a techie, one is more of a business developer. They come together. We've got one latest, I love it. It's a new idea, and it's for owners of pets, because here, I think during the pandemic, quite a few people, they also bought a pet, to keep them company while they were locked on lockdown. And so it's called Pet With It. And this is an online platform for people to get information about, vets, about pet friendly cafes. So there's that community that extends from the multicultural society, these people coming in, you know, from the classroom. I love the fact that we've just got friends from different cultures, and the perspective that you gain, the ideas that are coming out, the business ideas, the way people band together, it's just wonderful to watch. And this is why, you know, from a GoDaddy perspective, it's really great to tell these stories. I mean, for me, it's the most rewarding part of it is to see how a lot of these are startups, but we see idea after idea, the way they pivot, the resilience that we see from these small businesses, even in the kind of height of the pandemic. I know what's going on, so I'm going to take my idea, I'm going to shift it a little bit because I know my consumer, and I've got customers not just in the UAE, I've got customers in Egypt, I've got customers in Saudi, I've got customers, you know, that multinational kind of approach, and meeting the needs of those customers. I think this is truly what we've seen, and I love it. Like I truly love Dubai. I think people have to come here and really experience it for themselves, to understand what, once you come, it's very different. And I've lived in, you know, Australia, the UK, Turkey, Amsterdam, so I've got quite a lot of experience, but for me, I'm happy here. I'm happy to stay here.
And it's quite interesting, the amount of clients and candidates that a few years ago saying, you know, at some point I want to go back home, wherever home may be. Is that over this pandemic, the conversations have changed. People say, actually, do you know, we're in a hub here. I mean, there was a brilliant article a few months ago that Jim Mellon wrote, the global investor, and he was just identifying that the UAE he sees as being Hong Kong and Singapore in the 1990s. It's ready to burst. And it's all of these idiosyncrasies and all of this melting. I mean, someone just written here, Dubai, it's not a melting pot of different nationalities, it's a pot of potpourri. I mean, it is. And all of this brings innovation. So I suppose, Mohammad, down to you and this innovation hub, where are you seeing these cohorts coming in from? Are many local? Are they coming in from overseas? What's your kind of landscape view that you're seeing coming in?
So during the pandemic, before the pandemic, I mean, we used to, of course, we get a lot of companies from the region and from India, Singapore, London. But I think during the pandemic, there has been this surge of entrepreneurs from within that want to create new businesses, that want to create new ideas. Of course, we still have people kind of coming in from outside, but the amount of entrepreneurs or the new ideas that we come across from within UAE is unparalleled, and that's where we see the demand coming as well, and because the market is developing. I mean, if our tech market or the startup ecosystem, it's still, I would say, not as developed. I mean, it's developing rapidly, but I mean, if we were to compare it with the likes of US or India or China, but the pace that it's growing at, it's unparalleled. And over the last 12 months, I would say that a lot of growth has been from within and from the region mainly. But before that, yes, of course, India was a huge market for us, where we used to attract startups from the region, Jordan, Egypt. I mean, these are bubbling hubs where a lot of talent, we attract a lot of startups, a lot of talent from there. So yeah, I mean, it's from the region, and also internal hiring, I mean, of these tech companies has surged increasingly. We did a study just within the center, and we identified the top 50 clients where we believe that they will grow 5x and 10x, and all of them are startups, because we do have all the big banks, but the bank will not go 10x in the next 10 years. But the tech companies, we expect that these are the guys that will actually foster growth and create jobs for us. And it's actually happening, and we're seeing it. Companies they project that they'll have 10, 15 employees in a year, and then 6 months later they come back to us and they say, no, wait, we might actually be 30 people. So then we have to go back and see how we can accommodate the demands. But growth, I think, within the pandemic has been from the region mainly.
I mean, it's interesting you saying about the growth of the 10x and 5x, 10x. You know, to have that type of growth, you need the talent. And I think that is sort of a major issue of, like, how do you get the talent in? And I think interesting what the UAE has done is actually looked at, sort of, because it's a new economy, it's looked at the older economies and thought, actually, let's sort of set up a system which works for the employees to attract them in. So if I look at, things that businesses have to provide, like healthcare insurance, flights abroad, they actually really are pro the employee. And in a world where there's a lack of talent or a war on talent, if you can appeal to the employee, you're much more likely to attract them in, and attracting good talent in attracts businesses, and it just sort of self-perpetuates. And also, this whole freelance economy, you're attracting great freelancers to the region, which help this tech ecosystem. As soon as they've got investment, they want to get going tomorrow. They can't wait 6 months to find the perfect permanent hire. So it provides that whole agility. But I see that also translating into the freelance world, because there's regulation in place, which is ensuring that freelancers are well protected, which is a great thing. And I think the freelancers, again, we've talked a bit about trust in the mobile phone. Well, actually, because employees have to get a visa, and there is, everyone knows who you are, there's that element of trust. And I think sometimes people have previously worried about working with freelancers and can they trust them? Well, they can trust them. And I think there's a really strong element of trust within the region. So it works for both the freelancers and for the companies.
Surely. And Alice, as we're on this platform, I want to say out there to everyone that's listening, I spend a lot of time with the startups, with tech companies. I spend most of my days with them. There's a huge search for talent, and of course Dubai attracts a lot of talent, but companies that are based within Dubai, they're looking for talent, tech talent. If you're a coder, if you are a software engineer, we're seeing a surge that I've been with the center for 5 years. I have never seen something like this.
Yeah.
Each and every CEO or co-founder that I sit with talks about talent, and they're looking for talented people. So if you're out there, there are companies that are looking for talented people.
And that's why we brought the work crowd, because what we're doing is we're connecting locally but accessing globally. So we're connecting all those individuals together and centralizing this decentralized workforce. But if the talent doesn't exist, we can connect it to global talent. And that's a great way of also showcasing business in the UAE and attracting that talent in.
And instead of being a freelancer somewhere else, why not come and live here and do it? Let's take use of all these amazing visas, Issam. Sorry,
absolutely. That's exactly what I wanted to say, because, and that with that in mind, that's why we decided that it's about the right time now to really roll out these new programs, because we knew that a lot of people wanted to move to Dubai. They just didn't know how. And maybe the visa policy that were a bit more rigid. So I think by introducing these new opportunities, it makes it much easier. So we're also targeting students who want to start their work life in a place like Dubai. So these kind of initiatives will definitely open the door. And look, if you look back historically, a lot of people came to Dubai thinking, you know what, it's a 1 or 2 year stop on my CV, and then eventually I'm going to go back. And they ended up here being now for 20 years, 25 years, and they can't see themselves leaving. And we love that. And that's what we want to do. We want people to come to Dubai just to explore for the 1 or 2 years, and then end up staying here and setting up shop and setting up their life.
I came for 3 years and I'm on 8 now, and I'm not going anywhere.
That's great.
It's very nice to me. For one of these, it goes very fast.
Felice, one of the things that I think was raised also as a question over here, and I think they were talking about identifying ambassadors, those to talk about Dubai and what Dubai life is like. And I think it's less so about Mohammad and myself, but I think having yourself and Alice and Selina, less men and Emiratis saying about how great this place is, having expats who now are residents and advocates of the city has a much stronger statement. And I think that's what we're trying to encourage from our side, having the Emirati women, because again, that kind of like addresses so many misconceptions, and also the expat women who will talk about why Dubai is home for them and their family, why they chose Dubai. And I think those are the kind of things that we're working on next. And I think that platform like My Dubai was a soft way of introducing that message. But I think more importantly, going forward with a lot of the partners that we're working on to highlight and really bring to the fore all of these great initiatives, great things, and a lot of mothers who decided to leave a career to look after their kids in the early years, but now are venturing out in business, setting up shop in Dubai, and then uncovering those stories and you know, sharing that with the world.
Yeah. So we've seen this comment now from Susie. So Susie is VP of Comms at Talabat, one of the biggest tech companies headquartered here in Dubai. As you well know, we're hungry for talent. For example, we're looking to double our product and tech team before the end of the year alone. We see this number go 3x or more in just 1 to 2 years. The UAE government is doing so much to support us to attract talent, but what is it that we as companies and we as UAE residents can or could do to make more noise about the UAE? And what are your thoughts on this? Great question. It's true, it's what we're discussing now, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I do think this event here, 600 people. We went for a very wide global audience, and you can just see the appetite. They want this information. So I suppose we have to do more of them, guys and ladies.
Yeah, I think it's a unique time for the UAE, you know, and from any business who really wants to attract talent, because post-COVID, the employees are rethinking how they want to work and what's right for them, what's right for their families. So it's not just a matter of where's the opportunity, but actually it's a lifestyle thing as well. And the UAE is uniquely positioned in that there's great education, there's great climate, low taxation, and great businesses and opportunities within the region. So I think it's more of this, you know, it's reaching out globally, it's attracting the talent in because of that decoupling that's happened between the workplace and work. And so I think if you have a good proposition to market, you are able to offer the flexibility that Mohammad was talking about in terms of that hybrid type working. Technology is our best friend. It enables us to work globally. So all these things, you know, you have to think of employee first. And that's really what I noticed during the pandemic was business leaders switched from thinking about their clients first to their employees first. And they really started nurturing internally and looking at their talent and making sure they were safe and healthy and well, and their families were well. And if you continue on that vein, you're going to keep a really strong workforce and attract the best talent in.
Just jumping in on this one, sorry, Mohammed, but it's just a quick point on that. If you look at the initiatives that the government has rolled out, right? And this is something that I can proudly say that within Dubai, the government is actually the trendsetter, the one that are actually pushing the boundaries and pushing the envelope, unlike anywhere else in the world, right? And that's the differentiating factor. So it's not like we're waiting for the private sector to pick up or do the heavy lifting. And I think that's what keeps it exciting, and that's why for a lot of the businesses, you know, they're very interested in Dubai and the way that Dubai is set up. And when you looking after the employees, just putting it from a bigger perspective, the way that Dubai has always functioned, and we've talked about this internally about it being Dubai Inc., right? Where you have the leadership of Dubai being almost like the chairman and the private and the public sector forming the board, because there is such open dialogue between both sides and there is total harmony in terms of communicating, okay, what are the issues that you're facing and let's resolve those issues as opposed to resolving issues that we believe exist. So that kind of synergy and alignment is so important. And then how Dubai, with that same company hat, rolled out the PCR test so well and so managed it so well across the city, right? And then also the rolling out the vaccination program, making it amongst the first or second in the world in terms of rolling that out. And not only that, giving them the option, because not everyone would be comfortable with one type of a vaccine, so they had the option to select another one. And that is where this differentiating factor happens. It's almost like choosing the right organization to join, right? When there's a brand name, you think of certain brand names around the world, whether it's a tech firm or this and that, you think, you know what, I love the way that this brand thinks and the ethos of this brand, and that's where I want to go and work. And Dubai, if you think of it from that perspective, is the place that, you know, we would want people to think, you know what, I want to go work in Dubai.
And it's true, you look at all the other governments around the world talking about, shall we bring in a COVID passport? We've done it. I mean, and it takes so long for those governments to instill anything. I mean, it's here. I mean, I can show you on my telephone. It's Al Hosn app. I mean, in Abu Dhabi now, you're not allowed into a restaurant or a mall or anywhere without and the app quite clearly says, yes, I'm vaccinated. Yes, I've been tested. In you come. off we go. And that's why we're moving on and expanding as fast as well. But I think what we all see, and as business owners, as running businesses and the economy around here, is how quickly the government actually listens, and even more so now than ever before. And it's like we see in our jobs, Alice and I, as the work crowd and as Hanson Search, individuals, these employees, they want to know the why. It's changed in the last 12 months. Even questions CEOs are asking in their own interviews. It's fundamentally changed to the why. And I think that's where, you know, the UAE and all of these things that we're talking, I mean, it excites me. I'm proud to be here. And I think hopefully some of that global audience listening can really look at the region very differently. Because Alice, how are you, now that you've launched here as well? How has your, because obviously it's a global platform, it's relatively new here. How are you seeing the interaction with the platform that was there before, that are based in the UK and UAE? Are they opening up? Are they, what are you seeing as your interaction between the two?
I mean, interesting. So we sort of did a soft launch in the region, and now 50% of our freelancers come from the UAE that are signing up. So it shows the demand. It's, you know, it's really, really taken off. Likewise, UAE freelancers are happy to work on projects, you know, outside of the UAE and vice versa. So, you know, our premise was always connecting local, accessing global. And really the vision is to connect the freelancers, the white collar business freelancers across the UAE, GCC and beyond. And yeah, there's a huge demand, especially for new talent. So there's new skills coming into the market, and they're skills that maybe a business doesn't need all the time. So, you know, specialist digital marketing experience, writers, content individuals, AI specialists, technology. At the moment, we're focusing purely on the marketing element, so the writing, digital, but we're quickly moving into the developers, the AI specialists, so all those new skills that are coming through and that the tech startups companies are demanding.
And how do you see that in your position, Selina? Because I suppose, you know, I was looking at all my questions because we've only got a few minutes left. I think, oh, have I covered everything I wanted to? But you at Godaddy, you support and engage with all your entrepreneurs and all your small business owners and the freelancers on the back of it. Mm-hmm. So how are you seeing it from your landscape? Obviously, because you've got the global reach again.
Segment it. So we've got, you know, from a Godaddy perspective, obviously we offer tools and solutions that go from entry level to much more, you know, developer style products. And so when I look at this idea of freelancing, one of the interesting things is in the UAE, 35% of our survey respondents, they want to do it themselves. This may be because they have the tech skills, because they are confident that they can use a do-it-yourself tool, which again, we do offer for those who have the confidence to do it themselves. But what we saw is post the pandemic, over 40% are looking for help from either a professional, going back to freelancers, or are looking for help from a friend or family member. So when we look at this, the role of digitalization, when we look at the role of technology and go right back to basics, actually for anyone to leverage the power of the online world, the internet, we have to go back to that phase one of, so how do I get online? And we're here to support not just those that want to take their own route as a corporate brand, but then you have this segment of web designers, web agencies, people who just have an interest in developing websites or, you know, enhancing somebody's digital marketing skills, teaching them how to go and actually do social media marketing, do SEO for their website, write good content, because this is actually, to be online, you need to have all of these integrated. And, you know, we as a brand, we're doing as much as we can to transfer knowledge to the market, to say, hey, you know, this is what you need to do. These are the kind of tips that you need to, when you register a domain name, think of this. When you plan your website content, it goes hand in hand with your marketing plan and business plan. Understand what the role is that, you know, your website and your online presence play for you. But for somebody who is taking that plunge for the first time, it's one of the most commonly asked questions that I see in, you know, Facebook groups, in forums, in just general conversations. Where do I start? You know, even getting a bit of guidance on the design. And so that first step, tapping into a freelancer network, you go and ask a small business, go and ask any kind of startup, when they're getting their website designed for them, when they're building that initial online presence, they might already have a social media presence, but they end up needing some guidance. And then that's where they tap into the freelancer community here, because it's not an ongoing need. A lot of them are confident in, I can manage it myself, but I might need a little bit of support along the way. Demystifying SEO is a big one. And how do we, you know, allow people to leverage technology, empower people through digital to then be able to grow? And I think this is the right, from a talent point of view. There's a high belief, again, the same survey, 50% of entrepreneurs, they believe that these dynamic changes in technology, they make it easier to, the lower the barriers to entry, they make it easier to get up and running quickly, you know, and this is against the backdrop of that regulatory environment. But really, it's our role as all stakeholders here. We do our part in actually facilitating an environment that, you know, allows them to feel comfortable to come here, know that they're going to get the support. They have the regulatory framework that supports them, but then they also have the platforms, the technology, and the knowledge, and then the support, whether it's, you know, an initial project based, or whether it's something that's more long term, or it's just sharing information and building that community. That's I think we're at a solid foundation right now. I think there's a lot that's happening. It's the right time to be here, but it's still up to us to continue to develop that and foster the opportunity and the, you know, the current foundation that we know that we have.
And how great to hear this from you, who's a lot of e-commerce and on the consumer side, and then you're hearing Mohammad talking about the expectations of just one hub in Dubai. I mean, we're talking about one hub, and then Issam about what the whole region is looking at. I mean, I think it's a perfect ending to the event, because it's now 2 o'clock. I mean, I think it's been really, really enjoyable. We've got some great comments coming through. I think we might have to do a follow-up next time. But is anybody any leaving comments before we say goodbye to everybody?
I think I'll probably say something, Felice. So to everyone that's listening, the startup ecosystem is growing rapidly. I'm in it and I'm seeing it myself, the demand, the surge that we're seeing. There's a lot of demand for talent. Companies are hiring. You want to either start your own company, work for a tech company, and there is demand, and it's growing rapidly. So yeah.
Come to Dubai.
Yeah.
If I can just jump on the back of that one, also from our side, the one thing that I think maybe we didn't touch up much on is the Dubai Urban Plan 2040. So there's always something new that Dubai is working on or thinking about. And this is what keeps things exciting over here and why people are so interested about Dubai, because there's certain things that we always live by, right? So impossible doesn't exist in our dictionary, something that we truly believe in, even in the way that we work. From a government perspective. So being part of the government, I can tell you that if I get a call, even if it's not related to tourism per se, I will make sure that I will follow up on that call across all the different departments to ensure that matter is resolved before I back off. So those are the kind of things that are important. And with the same mindset, there's something that the leader of Dubai had said, which is there isn't a peak that we're almost about to reach before we already have our sight on the next challenge or the next mountain to climb, and that is truly the way that Dubai works, and that's why putting plans up ahead when it's 2030 plan, UAE for 2040, and talking about the centennial plans as well. All of these things are very well mapped out, very well communicated, and you can actually, when you look back, you will see how these pieces of the puzzle are actually being put together. They become so intrinsic in everything that we do on a daily basis that we forget that it's actually linked to a much bigger master plan. And I think those are the kind of things that are very, very important to look at. And then also from a Dubai creative economy, we're looking at the creative space, looking at the Al Ghoz area, which was a warehouse industrial zone within Dubai, and you can see a lot of these creative startups and popping up within those spaces, from galleries to creative hairdressers and so on and so forth. So there's so many cool things that are happening in Dubai that, again, not many people are aware of. But there's going to be a concerted effort now to ensure that, yes, we let it grow on the grassroots, but now to support that and let it, like start bubbling up and become something that people are very well aware of, and really capitalizing on that and jumping in on that journey as well.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I mean, I don't know if you can see these messages coming through from the audience. I think it's been a very well received and great insights, amazing session, flattered to know my country. I think let's do it again, guys. Anyway, we've reached the end of our session, everybody. I think thank you very much to all of you panelists. It's been fantastic. For everyone that's in the audience, we will be sending out a video, the recording of this. There will be a write-up with some of the key takeaways, because I think there's so much that we can navigate and go through. So there will be a follow-up to it as well. If there are any questions that you want to ask to any of the panelists, or myself, Alice, or Selina, anyone, please just message in. We'll try and answer as much as we can. But Issam, Mohammad, Selina, Alice, thank you. It's really great session. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you very much
for hosting us.
Okay.
Thank you, Felice.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Okay.